In life, sometimes you think you need a teacher or role model, but sometimes life turns you into the role model you thought you needed. That's what the Malili Women's Cooperative has become. They're an all-women's farming group in Zikankata, Zambia. They meet to share concerns about the effects climate change has on their farming and, by extension, on their lives. These women knew they had to adapt. They just didn't expect what they did to cause such a ripple in the community of Zikankata.
Some time back, women were not given time to voice out on anything, even when they had problems in their farming. We were told to keep quiet, but this time around, everything changed.
Welcome to Nature Answers, rural stories from a changing planet. Together, we explore stories of how communities in rural sub-Saharan Africa are working with nature to adapt to climate change. I'm your host, Ivy Prosper, joining you from Accra, Ghana. We're talking about nature-based solutions, but more importantly, the stories of people who are using those solutions to make a difference in their communities. Nature-based solutions are ways of adapting to climate change using the lessons learned from nature. They benefit the environment, but equally importantly, benefit the people involved in them as well. Today's episode takes place in Zambia. There, Farm Radio International works with the Media Institute of Southern Africa, or MISA, to build radio programs on nature-based solutions, and the people there are listening. Rosanna Malambo is the chairperson and treasurer of the Malili Women's Cooperative. Twice a week, Rosanna and the other women in the group meet on her farm to talk about farming. Rosanna's farm is a collection of life. Animals roam the dusty earth, and plant life flourishes between the cracks in the soil. Under the shade trees, Rosanna's farm has become home to the cooperative, and a place where these women have grown close. But the group has not always been so close.
There were some challenges at first because people didn't know the benefits of being in the group.
The group came together 6 years ago at the suggestion of a local radio station. They soon caught people's attention.
After seeing what we did and how it benefited us, the members, many people started joining one by one, coming from different cooperative groups.
But the group fell into financial troubles.
We once tried to do farming as a group. We harvested 20 bags of maize, then sold to the Food Reserve Agency. After selling, we gave someone the money who was not trustworthy and sent her to buy some items so that we would start a business. Unfortunately, that person used the money and the group members lost interest to be part of the team, but I encouraged them not to give up.
Rather than discourage the cooperative, this only made them stronger. The strength would be needed, however, as the farmers soon faced an existential challenge. In February of 2024, the president of Zambia declared a national disaster and emergency. The country was in the throes of a historic drought. Nearly 10 million Zambians were, and still are, being affected by the driest agricultural season in 40 years. This means working longer hours to produce less yield from the fields, less food to feed your family. Inede Mutiabila is a member of the Malili Cooperative. Like many Zambians, her farm's harvests suffered from the drought.
Last farming season, we planted more than enough crops, but unfortunately there wasn't enough rain, and as a result the maize did not grow well.
Keturah Simate is another group member. She worries about climate change's effects on her farming and livelihood.
I'm worried about the climate change because if it continues, we will be food insecure in our homes and even the whole country.
Maize is a staple food in Zambia. With the drought, even it is difficult to grow. Rosanna noticed the drought had a particular strain on women in Zambia.
As women, we are the one who struggles in our families. Because everything depends on the mothers. Even cooking, looking for firewood, we ask the mothers. So we are very important. So that's why we have to encourage our fellow women to do the same.
As the drought dried up their farmlands, the Malili women came together. They asked themselves what they could do. Soon they were nurturing a seed of hope. At one of their regular listening sessions, the farmers program they tuned into talked about the ways of adapting their farming to the drought. Soon, the women began to see results in their farming that others were not. The reason? The group's ability to work together on nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions are actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural and modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously benefiting people and nature. This is a definition that comes from the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The programs the women were listening to came from a project run by Farm Radio International, the makers of this podcast. Technicalities aside, the practical lessons the women were hearing on the programs helped them improve their farming. It also helped improve the group's ability to deal with other concerns. One thing the Malili Women's Cooperative tried was a practice called ripping. Ripping involves digging deep into the earth to turn the soil and remove the hardened topsoil. This method loosens the soil and builds a better home for the planted seeds. Here's Keturah again.
I saw that there was a challenge in farming harvest. After learning about the rimping method of farming, which helped me and my family. And joining this group, I acquired more knowledge than I expected.
Like Keturah, many women in the group began to implement these nature-based solutions. Like Keturah, many have found success. Here's Rosanna again.
The maize became dry, but in my field, as if someone is watering the maize. The maize are dying. So many of them thought that leaping destroys maize. Water can't stay there. That's why they normally using jirimerime. They don't know the benefits of what? Of leaping method.
The group didn't just try ripping together, they rotated their crops. They also planted a certain type of a tree that benefits the soil and doesn't compete for sunlight, and even protected the growing crops from animals. After Inelese Mukempa learned about these farming methods, she began to see the benefits.
I observed that crops grown where musangu trees are found tend to be very healthy and farmers do not need to apply chemical fertilizer. I can tell you that apart from the tree being nutritious to the soil, it is also good for animals as they feed on the pods and the leaves in the dry season.
With benefits like these, group members like Overinka Bulo were eager to put what she learned to use.
From the time this group started, We have learned on how to plant the musangu tree in our field, which brings nutrients to the soil and also makes the soil fertile. We have also learned about the reaping method of farming than using the old way of farming, which destroys the soil.
Despite the success of the group, many in Zikankata were still struggling because of the drought. Worse, the new methods the group tried weren't accepted by others outside of their group, and this came with its own problems. Despite the drought, the group couldn't convince others in the community that climate change was affecting their farms. Instead, they were called foolish or confused because they were no longer farming in a traditional way. Not thinking that climate change mattered, others in the community saw no reason to change. In many ways, it makes sense. After all, if you don't think climate change is an issue, why would you change what has worked for so long? But despite the judgment, the Malili women continued to trust in the methods they had learned, to trust in each other. Brighton Michelo is a farmer who lives in Zikankata. He became curious about the ways these women were farming.
From the time I joined this group, I have learned a lot and the group has been successful.
Brighton spent time with the group learning techniques he could apply on his own farm. The more he spent time with the women, the more he saw the ways in which they had become more than just a group. As their crops slowly grew, so too did the bonds between those who planted them. Michelo was inspired. He began to learn and grow alongside these women.
What makes us very proud and successful as a group is we meet together and stand united. When there are situations where we need something from town, quickly we come together and plan as a group. If we also need any donation, we work hand in hand. Our leader is someone we trust. She can't cheat on us.
Thanks to the women's generosity with their time and knowledge, he was able to improve his own harvest and in turn, better support his family.
From the knowledge I gained from the group last farming season, I used intercropping farming, which helped me to harvest a little for my family. Despite the drought, which after selling part of the harvest, we managed to buy a motorbike to use at home.
As the harvest came in and the Malili women's crops succeeded where others failed, people soon began to take notice of the women's success. And as more took notice, more farmers came to the women to ask for help with their own farms. The Malili Women's Cooperative began to form a brand new relationship with the community at large. Soon, it wasn't just Michelo who was adopting the women's farming practices. When Rosanna would talk with other community members, all she heard was people saying how they would follow the ways of the Malili women.
So they are now busy encouraging people. They saw themselves that leaping is a very good idea. So many of them, they said, this year we are going to use this method. This year we are going to use this method. And I harvested more maize than people think I got them.
The community's support is re-energizing the group. They want to show other women in their community what is possible. Here's Rosanna again.
What gives us courage as a group, especially women? We look at the role we play in the program and we feel free to express ourselves. Some time back, women were not given time to voice out on anything, even when they had problems in their farming. We were told to keep quiet, but this time around, everything changed. We have shown everyone that we can also be trusted. Even with finances, we know how to use money.
However, many women in the group know that there is still more to do. Climate change continues to uproot people's lives, but these women have found a way to mitigate this struggle for now. And Elise knows firsthand how important these victories are.
This group that we have has really helped us, especially this year when we had a drought, which hit almost the entire country. But from the knowledge we share in the group, we implemented what we are taught, and we managed to harvest something, and we live happily in our homes because we have food to eat. And we also encourage others who are not part of the group to use the reaping method of farming and also to join the group.
And with the yields from their farms, each woman was able to improve other areas of their lives in turn.
The intercropping farming method has really helped me, especially because this year we had a drought as a country. You find that in fields where I did intercropping, I managed to harvest a little for the family compared to the fields where I just planted one crop. And I also supported my children to go to school.
Like many women, Keturah has been able to set up a future for herself and her family. One where she can be self-sufficient and continue to affect positive change around her.
We don't just share the information in our group or cooperative only. We do share the information even at church, at lunch. Anywhere we gathered as women, we do share the information so that everyone, even if she is not part of us, she can do the same and change the environment in our community.
Rosanna has watched this group transform from a listening group to a cooperative involved in the community. She knows how far they've come because she knows how tough it was for the co-op to begin.
Before this program, this group was not there. We were honored to form this group under Mrs. Zambia because we had challenges. Having faced these challenges, we had no means on how we are going to end these problems. We also had no interest of listening to the radio, but after you brought us this program, we started following, and we are now seeing the benefit of us women participating on radio programs about farming.
Now, with trees planted, crops growing, and bonds being strengthened, the future is looking rather hopeful for the Malili Women's Cooperative. But they will not forget why they first got together. Even Michelo, who joined after the group formed, sees it.
This group was formed after we faced some challenges as farmers. We came together so that we can be listening to programs about farming on radio together, and we have found that there are benefits through the program. And we have also managed to send our children to school because we implemented what we were taught, which has helped us to be more successful.
Like Michelo, many among the community have been helped by the women of the Malili Women's Cooperative. To Rosanna, that is what makes the cooperative so important. These women took charge and became a beacon to their community through farming, a beacon of unity, perseverance, and growth.
The work which are doing by the women, they are powerful.
This is Nature Answers from Farm Radio International. You can learn more about nature-based solutions and the people implementing them by subscribing to Nature Answers wherever you get your podcast. You can also follow us on social media at Farm Radio. Find pictures of the community on our website at farmradio.org/natureanswers. You will also find transcripts and more about nature-based solutions there. You can also help support the work Farm Radio International is doing to support farmers like the Malili Women's Cooperative by leaving us a donation there at farmradio.org. Finally, share Nature Answers with your friends and family. We'd love to spread the word. Next week, we'll travel to Côte d'Ivoire, where we'll hear from a community facing the consequences of climate change to their economic situation and the sacrifices that they are making to try and change their future. Until next time, I'm your host, Ivy Prosper, coming to you from Accra, Ghana.